On Friday, June 25th, I dined with Johnson at General Paoli's, where he says in one of his letters to Mrs. Thrale, quote, "I love to dine." There was a variety of dishes, much to his taste, of all which he seemed to me to eat so much that I was afraid he might be hurt by it. And I whispered to the general my fear, and begged he might not press him. "Alas," said the general, "see how very ill he looks. He can live but a very short time. Would you refuse any slight gratifications to a man under a sentence of death? There is a humane custom in Italy, by which persons in that melancholy situation are indulged with having whatever they like best to eat and drink, even with expensive delicacies." I showed Johnson some verses on Lichfield by Miss Seward, which I had that day received from her, and had the pleasure to hear him approve of them. He confirmed to me the truth of a high compliment which I had been told he had paid to that lady, which he mentioned to him when she mentioned to him the Columbiad, an epic poem by Madame du Bocage. "Madame, there is not in my anything equal to your description of the sea round the North Pole in your ode to the death of Captain Cook." On Sunday, June 27th, I found Johnson rather better. I mentioned to him a young man, John Laurie, JB's former clerk, who was going to Jamaica with his wife and children in expectation of being provided for by two of her brothers settled in that island, one a clergyman and the other a physician. Johnson said, "It is a wild scheme, sir, unless he has a positive and deliberate invitation. There is a poor girl who used to come about me, who had a cousin in Barbados, that in a letter to her expressed a wish she should come out to that island and expatiated on the comforts and happiness of her situation. The poor girl went out. Her cousin was much surprised and asked her how she could think of coming. 'Because,' said she, 'you invited me.' 'Not I,' answered the cousin. The letter was then produced. 'I see it is true,' said she, 'that I did invite you, but I did not think you would come.' They lodged her in an outhouse, where she passed her time miserably, and as soon as she had an opportunity, she returned to England. Always she tells this, when you hear of people going abroad to relations upon a notion of being well received. In the case which you mention, it is probable the clergyman spends all he gets, and the physician does not know how much he is to get." I assume here he means outhouse as a some kind of building outside and not an actual bathroom. We this day dined at Sir Joshua Reynolds's with General Paoli, Lord Eliot, formerly Mr. Eliot of Port Eliot, Dr. Beatty, and some other company. Talking of Lord Chesterfield, Johnson said, "His manner was exquisitely elegant, and he had more knowledge than I expected." I said, "Did you find, sir, his conversation to be of a superior style?" Johnson answered, "Sir, in the conversation which I had with him, I had the best right to superiority, for it was upon philology and literature." Lord Eliot, who had traveled at the same time with Mr. Stanhope, Lord Chesterfield's natural son, justly observed that it was strange that a man who showed he had so much affection for his son as Lord Chesterfield did, by writing so many long and anxious letters to him, almost all of them which he was secretly, when he was Secretary of State, which certainly was proof of great goodness of disposition. You get all that? Should endeavor to make his son a rascal. His lordship told us that Foote had intended to bring on the stage a father who had thus tutored his son, and to show the son an honest man to everyone else, but practicing his father's maxim upon him and cheating him. Johnson said, I am much pleased with this design, but I think there was no occasion to make the son honest at all. No, he should be a consummate rogue. The contrast between honesty and knavery would be the stronger. It should be contrived so that the father should be the only sufferer by the son's villainy, and thus there would be poetical justice. Johnson put Lord Eliot in mind of Dr. Walter Hart. I know, said he, Hart was your lordship's tutor, and he was also tutor to the Peterborough family. Pray, my lord, do you recollect any particulars that he told you of Lord Peterborough? He is a favorite of mine, and is not enough known. His character has been only ventilated in party pamphlets. Lord Eliot said if Dr. Johnson would be so good as to ask him any questions, he would tell what he could recollect. Accordingly, some things were mentioned. But, said his lordship, the best account of Lord Peterborough that I have happened to meet with is in Captain Carleton's memoirs. Carleton was descended of an ancestor who had distinguished himself at the siege of Derry. He was an officer, and what was rare at that time, had some knowledge of engineering. Johnson said he had never heard of the book. Lord Eliot had it at Port Eliot, but after a good deal of inquiry procured a copy in London and sent it to Johnson, who told Sir Joshua Reynolds that he was going to bed with it when it came, but was so much pleased with it that he sat up till he had read it through, and found in it such an air of truth that he could not doubt of its authenticity. Adding, with a smile, in allusion to Lord Eliot having recently been raised to the peerage, I did not think a young lord could have mentioned to me a book in the English history that was not known to me. An addition to our company came after we went up to the drawing room. Dr. Johnson seemed to rise in spirits as his audience increased. He said, he wished Lord Osford's pictures in Sir Ashton Lever's museum might be purchased by the public because both the money and the pictures and the curiosities would remain in the country, whereas if they were sold into another kingdom, the nation would indeed get some money, but would lose the pictures and curiosities, which it would be desirable we should have, but for improvement in taste and natural history. The only question was, as the nation was much in want of money, whether it would not be better to take a large price from a foreign state. He entered upon a curious discussion of the difference between intuition and sagacity, one being immediate in its effect, the other requiring a circuitous process. One, he observed, was the eye of the mind, the other the nose of the mind. A young gentleman, Burke's son Richard, present, took up the argument against him and maintained that no man ever thinks of the nose of the mind, not advertising that though that figurative sense seems strange to us, as very unusual, it is truly not more force than Hamlet's "in my mind's eye" Horatio. He persisted much too long and appeared to Johnson as putting himself forward as his antagonist with too much presumption, upon which he called to him in a loud voice, "What is it you are contending for, if you be contending?" And afterwards, imagining that the gentleman retorted upon him with a kind of smart drollery, he said, Mr. I guess this is Burke. Mr. Burke, it does not become you to talk so to me. Besides, ridicule is not your talent. You have there neither intuition nor sagacity. The gentleman protested that he had intended no improper freedom, but had the greatest respect for Dr. Johnson. After a short pause, during which we were somewhat uneasy, Johnson said, "Give me your hand, sir. You were too tedious, and I was too short." Mr. Burke said, "Sir, I am honored by your attention in any way." Johnson said, "Come, sir, let's have no more of it. We offended one another by our contention. Let us not offend the company by our compliments. Johnson now said he wished much to go to Italy. I don't know, I almost said Jerusalem for something. To go to Italy. And that he dreaded passing the winter in England. I said nothing, but enjoyed a secret satisfaction in thinking that I had taken the most effectual measure to make such a scheme practicable. And the word is practicable here. I am pronouncing it as it is said, as written. On Monday, June 28th, I had the honor to receive from the Lord Chancellor the following letter. To James Boswell, Esquire. Sir, I should have answered your letter immediately if, being much engaged when I received it, I had not put it in my pocket and forgot to open it till this morning. I am much obliged to you for the suggestion, and I will adapt and press it as far as I can. The best argument, I am sure, and I hope it is not likely to fail, is Dr. Johnson's merit. But it will be necessary, if I should be so unfortunate as to miss seeing you, to converse with Sir Joshua on the sum of will be proper to ask. In short, upon the means of setting him out. It would be a reflection on us all if such a man should perish for want of the means to take care of his health. Yours and etc. Thurlow. This letter gave me a very high satisfaction. I next day went and showed it to Sir Joshua Reynolds, who was exceedingly pleased with it. He thought that I should now communicate the negotiation to Dr. Johnson, who might afterwards complain if the attention with which he had been honored should be too long concealed from him. I intended to set out for Scotland next morning, but Sir Joshua cordially insisted that I should stay another day, that Johnson and I might dine with him, that we three might talk of his Italian tour, and, as Sir Joshua expressed himself, have it all out. I hastened to Johnson and was told by him that he was rather better today. I said, I am very anxious about you, sir, and particularly that you should go to Italy for the winter, which I believe is in your own wish. Johnson said, It is, sir. I said, You have no objection, I presume, but the money it will require. Johnson said, Why, no, sir. Upon which I gave him a particular account of what had been done and read to him the Lord Chancellor's letter. He listened with much attention, then warmly said, This is taking prodigious pains about a man. Oh, sir, said I, with most sincere affection, your friends would do everything for you. He paused, grew more and more agitated, till tears started into his eyes, and he exclaimed with fervent emotion, God bless you all. I was so affected that I also shed tears. I'm getting a little teary just thinking about it. After a short silence, he renewed and extended his grateful benediction. God bless you all for Jesus Christ's sake. We both remained for some time unable to speak. He rose suddenly and quitted the room, quite melted in tenderness. He stayed but a short time, till he had recovered his firmness. Soon after he returned, I left him, having first engaged him to dine at Sir Joshua Reynolds's the next day. I never was again under that roof which I had so long reverenced. On Wednesday, June 30th, the friendly confidential dinner with Sir Joshua Reynolds took place, no other company being present. Had I known that this was the last time that I should enjoy in this world the conversation of a friend whom I so much respected, and from whom I derived so much instruction and entertainment, I should have been deeply affected. When I now look back to it, I am vexed that a single word should have been forgotten. But Sir Joshua and I were so sanguine in our expectations that we expatiated with confidence on the liberal provision which we were sure would be made for him, conjecturing whether munificence would be displayed in one large donation or in an ample increase of his pension. He himself catch so much of our enthusiasm as to allow himself to suppose it not impossible that our hopes might in one way or other be realized. He said that he would rather have his pension doubled than a grant of £1,000. For, said he, though probably I may not live to receive as much as £1,000, a man would have the consciousness that he should pass the remainder of his life in splendor, how long soever it might be. Considering what a moderate proportion an income of £600 a year bears to innumerable fortunes in this country, it is worthy of remark that a man so truly great should think it splendor. As an instance of extraordinary liberality of friendship, Johnson told us that Dr. Brocklesby had upon this occasion offered him £100 a year for his life. A grateful tear started into his eye as he spoke this in a faltering tone. Sir Joshua and I endeavored to flatter his imagination with agreeable prospects of happiness in Italy. Nay, said Johnson, I must not expect much of that. When a man goes to Italy merely to feel how he breathes the air, he can enjoy very little. Our conversation turned upon living in the country, which Johnson, whose melancholy mind required the dissipation of quick, successive variety, had habituated himself to consider as a kind of mental imprisonment. Yet, sir, said I, there are many people who are content to live in the country. Johnson said, Sir, it is in the intellectual world as in the physical world. We are told by natural philosophers that a body is at rest in the place that it is fit for it. Those who are content to live in the country are fit for the country. Talking of various enjoyments, I argued that a refinement of taste was a disadvantage, as they who have attained to it must be seldomer pleased than those who have no nice discrimination, and are therefore satisfied with everything that comes in their way. Johnson said, Nay, sir, this is paltry notion. Endeavor to be as perfect as you can in every respect. I accompanied him in Sir Joshua Reynolds' coach to the entry of Bolt Court. He asked me whether I would not go with him to his house. I declined it from an apprehension that my spirits would sink. We bade adieu to each other affectionately in the carriage. When he had got down upon the foot pavement, he called out, Fare you well, and without looking back, sprung away with a kind of pathetic briskness, if I may use that expression, which seemed to indicate a struggle to conceal uneasiness, and impressed me with a foreboding of our long, long separation. I remained one more day in town to have the chance of talking over my negotiation with the Lord Chancellor, but the multiplicity of his lordship's important engagements did not allow to it, so I left the management of the business to the hands of Sir Joshua Reynolds. Well, that's it for today. Until next time, bye from Boswell.